Battle Lines 2025 is behind us, and we saw a fantastic show with some peculiar returns, some intriguing debuts, and the formation of a group that could possibly wreak havoc on the viral pro wrestling landscape. We are on the road to all or nothing, but first, we have to recap Battle Lines. We saw a peculiar return as the patriarch of sports entertainment empire, James Johnson, returned after a 2-year hiatus from VPW to face another returning former VPW Outbreak champion and himself in, I gotta say this right, the Latin lover, Gustavo. Like that, like the emphasis. Unfortunately, this match, this was going back and forth, but this one ended with a little bit of a brass knuckle right hand coming from James Johnson, putting out the fuego in Gustavo's night. Now, the reason I'm saying this is peculiar is, well, it kind of marries with what match I want to talk about next, which would be the Queen City Killer, Clara Carter, going against your VPW Women's Champion and your hero, Erica Demia. The Queen City Killer, Clara Carter, finally got her opportunity at the VPW Women's Champion, Erica Demia, your hero. And because of the whole Hurricane Helene situation causing all kinds of chaos, she had to wait. But she was ready to cause a little bit of chaos on her own and capture the VPW Women's Championship. However, there was a little bit of a surprise and an intriguing debut as out of nowhere, Erica Demia is being dragged to the ring by none other than the Marvel Mila Johnson, who then proclaimed that she was going to be in the match, causing it to be a triple threat match, which the VPW officials allowed. So these women in a triple threat match for the VPW Women's Championship absolutely was hard hitting, very calculated by all three women, but in the end, it was the girl that goes beyond, who went beyond to pull out the victory, with heart and determination, and was able to walk out still VPW Women's Champion. Now, if you'd have asked me my opinion, I think Clara Carter kind of got the short end of the stick here. She wasn't expecting Mila Johnson to come out. I honestly believe that she deserves a one-on-one with the champion and needs to have that opportunity given to her. However, we now have Mila Johnson in the mix, who obviously has a target on the back of Erica Demia and wants to get a shot at that title as well. It remains to be seen how the women's title picture will play out. But what does this have to do with James Johnson? Well, with now James Johnson and Mila Johnson, and then you add one more to the mix. Well, you know what? We'll get to that later. And what I thought was going to be simply a test of wrestling prowess between two competitors went sideways very fast as we saw the Southern Savior John Schuyler taking on another VPW edition, the real Slim J, and what has been a best 2 out of 3 series between the two guys. Now, this match kicked off Battle Lines, and it absolutely set the bar for the rest of the night. Seeing Slim J get the roll up on John Schuyler, getting the 1-2-3, and tying the 2 out of 3 series 1-1 between Slim J and John Schuyler. But Schuyler, being the seething Southern Savior he is, say that 3 times fast, decided that he was going to offer his boot to Slim J's coin purse and cause a downstairs mix-up in the very worst way. And not only that, but Schuyler went so far as to start a devastating beatdown and pull out a dog chain and beat the crap out of Slim J until blood was spilled on the chain and Slim was left in a bloody heap. Despite that being left bloody, though, Slim J was able to get up on his own power with a little bit of help. Now, it's obvious that Schuyler wants Slim J to know that this isn't a friendly competition and that he's willing to take it up to 11 to make sure he gets the win. But I also know that Schuyler knows that Slim J is willing to take it up to 11 as well, and maybe even beyond. And that's why I want to take this time now to introduce a new segment to the podcast. that's going to go a little bit more in depth about these two gentlemen and what is coming up as far as All or Nothing goes. This segment is the Mayne perspective. With doing this podcast now, I have the opportunity to be a guide as a former pro wrestler to shine a light, if you will, on the importance of individuals and situations surrounding VPW. This is my in-depth look into the stars and stories surrounding the viral pro wrestling landscape, and to give you, the infected, the opportunity to learn about these stars and what they're all about. So for over 17 years and 1,500 matches, John Schuyler has been sharpening his tools in the craft of professional wrestling. Over that time, he's been one of the most meticulous, cunning, and vicious mat wrestlers I have ever seen in some time. That style has allowed him to traverse the wrestling world. Places that he's been able to go to with this style includes Ring of Honor. He's toured with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he currently is residing as far as his home promotion in TNA Impact. However, he comes home sometimes, back to his second home at Viral Pro Wrestling, and he is willing to put Southern salvation to any unlucky competitor that is willing to have the Savior's hands laid upon them in the worst way. The Southern Savior, most recent victim of this was the real Slim J. Now, in this situation, it would be any other run-of-the-mill deal. But this is different. This is different because they both, him and Slim J, have graced the same ground, the same hallowed ground that I too have once graced before. And that is the Church of Southern Wrestling, also known as the Landmark Arena, home to NWA Wildside/Anarchy. Now, if you don't know this about the Church of Southern Wrestling, there's only one thing that you need to know. Some of the greatest wrestlers that we know today came through that sacred ground. Some of them include the likes of the phenomenal AJ Styles, Xavier Woods of the New Day, the Monster Abyss from TNA, the late, great Jimmy Rave, two-finger salute, by the way, and also Cash Wheeler, one half of the FTR and AEW, and so many more. But if you were to ask pretty much anybody that's been on that sacred ground, who's the heart and soul of the Church of Southern Wrestling, it would be hard-pressed to find anybody else besides the real Slim J. Let me tell you something. This dude has pulled off some amazing feats, some high risks that I would never dare try to do. And with a true swag like no other, this guy has cemented his name in infamy in places like NWA TV, AEW, and of course NWA TNA, which is now TNA Impact. By the way, just so you know, this guy is the youngest, to this day, the youngest person to ever be on a TNA pay-per-view. Says a lot. Slim J has accomplished so much in his time in this sport, just like his counterpart, John Schuyler. They are no strangers to each other. But in this best-of-3 series, this has been the first time they have ever faced each other one-on-one, and now the stakes are higher. That's because this match, this final match, will be contested in a dog collar match. Will the salvation be taken away from Slim J? Or will the heart and soul be too much to handle for John Schuyler coming from Slim J? Or will it be, in this case, too real for him? We'll find all that out at All or Nothing. So leading up to Battle Lines, we had some breaking news regarding the VPW Tag Team Championship, which came from the man himself, Joshua Hancock.
Well, as you know, the champions are Buff and Fluff. But I've talked to Cody Fluffman, and he's informed me that he will not be able to fulfill his dates with Viral Pro Wrestling. I've also talked to Sean Legacy. Sean has told me that he wants to go on and pursue his singles career as a WWE ID prospect. So me, Cody, and Sean have come to a mutual agreement that they are going to relinquish the tag team championships effective immediately.
As far as the tag team title picture goes, we finally got our answers at Battle Line regarding the situation. But before we get into that, we have to talk about the situation with Hateful and Fateful versus the Superstars, who are making their debut at Battle Lines, going after the tag titles, kinda, I guess, maybe a confusion at this point, because this was an unsanctioned match, which means that whoever won, it didn't matter. It wasn't going to count in the VPW record books. On top of that, we were blindsided by the fact that Jackson Drake, one half of Hateful and Fateful, wasn't going to be able to make it to the show for whatever reason. We still don't know what's going on because Alexander Lev, being as cryptic as he could be, didn't give us any answers on that. But he did have to find a partner, which he did. And the person that he brought out, to my unpleasant surprise, I have mad respect for this guy, but he brings a sour taste to my mouth. And that person is none other than the ghost of Kennesaw himself, Chip Day, making a return after his hiatus to take the place of Jackson Drake in this match. Now, no matter what, this was a crazy match, to say the very least. And despite being unsanctioned, it was very high tension. But in the end, it was the Superstars hitting 27 Club to win the match. But then it kind of all hell broke loose, because as the Superstars celebrated thinking they are the champions, here comes Zuka and JAC out of nowhere to attack them, take the titles for themselves, because again, possession is 9/10 of the law, according to Hateful and Fateful, and they wanted to take that proclamation under their guise as well and say, hey, if that's the case, then we're going to take the titles. So they come in, take the titles, try to run off, and then out of nowhere, here comes the country gentlemen, AJ and Casey Kazana. They're coming out. They had just defended their NWA USA, or United States Tag Team Champions, earlier against Zuka and JAC. They're like, nah, bruh. We want the titles. And all hell breaks loose. Everybody's brawling for the titles, and in the midst of the chaos, here comes Joshua Hancock out of nowhere, grabbing the titles and finally making it where it's going to be Hateful and Fateful versus the Superstars. And I need to say this right. The Superstars! I hope I did that right for you guys. The Country Gentlemen and Abuse of Power, all four of those teams in a fatal four-way tag match to finally decide who is the rightful owner and champion of the tag team division in Viral Pro. In our VPW main event, we were supposed to see the Handsome Devil Drew Hood take on the returning Preston Vance from AEW. However, due to some unforeseen circumstances with scheduling, Vance was not able to make it to the show. With that news being dropped, though, Drew Hood took it upon himself to try to get himself a night off. But as we all know, Joshua Hancock wasn't going to have that, and he already had a plan B in place. So with that being said, although he didn't have a Preston Vance to take on Drew Hood, he did have a Thrillbilly on speed dial, and Silas Mason was more than happy to put the greatest mullet in the universe on display while handing these hands over to Drew Hood to take him on with the VPW Championship. Now, earlier, I said that the return of James Johnson was peculiar, and the debut of Mila Johnson had some intrigue around it. Reason being is because James and Mila Johnson out of nowhere came down to the ring and provided assistance to Drew Hood. Mila providing the distraction, and James Johnson pulling out the brass knucks that he used on Gustavo earlier that night and handing them to Drew, which he in turn turned around and blasted Silas Mason with them and secured the victory and retained his VPW championship. Now the question is, why? Why would they come down and do that? What's the connection between the two? Now, do you see why this was so peculiar and intriguing? There's a lot of answers that we need right now, and maybe we'll get those answers April 12th at All or Nothing. We are headed into VPW All or Nothing 2025, and it is going to be an absolutely crazy show. We've got the tag title situation. We got Slim J and Skylar on a dog collar collision course, and now we got questions surrounding the VPW champion and Drew Hood and his relationship to James Johnson and Mila Johnson. It is going to be crazy. You do not want to miss this show. Be a part of the Infected. Get your tickets online or go over to Top Dog Comics on Washington Road in Augusta if you are in the area. Do not miss this show, and I'll see you next time, and hopefully April 12th at All or Nothing.